Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Higher Education Google Deep Dive, presented by myself, Stephen Threadgill. I'm pleased to say we're joined by Bart van Kimmenade. He is one of our longest serving product owners, and he and his teams have been driving forward our Google integration. Today we're going to be talking about Google. We're going to be talking about the integration we have with the great productivity tools that you see in G Suite. This is part of a series of public webinars that we've been running. We've already delivered one on working with Office 365 for those of you that use itslearning together with Office, and you can see that on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. We did a large back-to-school webinar about a week ago where we went through all of the great features that we have coming over the summer. And again, you can find that on YouTube if you want to view that again. And today we're really going to focus on Google and the integration that we have with G Suite. So now I'd like to hand over to Bart van Kimmenade, who's going to tell us a lot more about what we're doing with Google and how we're bringing that to you both in the summer and also some of the things we have coming longer term.
Thank you, Stephen. So also on my behalf, welcome to this webinar about our Google for Education integration, also known as our G Suite integration. And I want to talk you through all the different ways itslearning currently integrates with apps from G Suite, but also what we're planning to do in the near future. itslearning is a premium partner of Google for Education. We're actually the only LMS that's a premium partner of Google for Education, so that's something we're very proud of, and we work closely together with Google to work on our roadmap moving forward. You see all kinds of Google apps here. Most of the icons you will likely recognize. There's one special icon here, and that's the icon of Google Classroom. Google Classroom is an app we don't really integrate with. I will tell a bit more about Google Classroom closer to the end of this webinar, but Google Classroom has too much overlap with itslearning courses. So, and that's something Google agrees with us on, it's not something that makes sense to integrate with. So where you see Google Classroom in this landscape, we see Google Classroom replaced with itslearning, but still being able to integrate, reach out to all those other great apps from G Suite. As I mentioned before, there have been a lot of developments already in the past, and we'll talk you through those as well, just to give you a bit of an update, but also to be able to give a bit of a holistic picture of the integration. And there are a couple of integrations that are coming in the near future or slightly later this year. One of the developments we've been focusing on is just making it very simple for teachers and students to access their itslearning environment. If you are a G Suite organization, then perhaps you also have Chromebooks handed out to your teachers and students. And what we want to make sure is that it's very easy when you log on to your Chromebook with your Google account to also access itslearning. Same goes for the Chrome browser. If you're already logged into Google in the Chrome browser, it should be very simple to access itslearning from there. So I'll talk a bit more about those two in a bit. But once you're in itslearning, we also want to make it very simple to access your Google apps without having to go outside of itslearning. But the other way around, and that's something I will talk more about close to the end of this webinar, if you're not in itslearning, you're in perhaps a Google app, it should be very simple to trigger a follow-up action, if you will, in itslearning from that app. So it shouldn't really matter where you start, but I'll talk more about that in a couple of slides. First, let's look back at some of the things we've released in the past. First up is the Chromebook app, which makes it very simple for teachers and students, once they're logged on to their Chromebook with their Google account, to start using itslearning. So I've recorded a small video of this. You might recognize an itslearning icon in the launcher, as Google calls it. So I click the itslearning icon, and with my Google account, I'm redirected to the correct itslearning site and logged on as the correct itslearning user. What you see here is one of the other things we are delivering over the summer, our new homepage with an overview of your courses and the latest changes. It is a student view, the latest to-do, and the latest announcements for the students. But there are also other ways you can work with this homepage. If you want to know more about this homepage, Stephen mentioned in the introduction, we have a recorded webinar talking about all the great features we deliver over this summer. Quite similar, if you're on a Chromebook or on another device, maybe even on Windows with your Chrome browser, you can also use what G Suite calls the Marketplace app of itslearning to simply log on to itslearning. So again, a video, I open the app drawer of my Chrome browser and there is an itslearning app. I click it and I'm taken to itslearning. So might be a bit quick, so let me rerun this video from the top and pause it here. So there's an itslearning app in the Chrome app drawer. If you have installed the itslearning Marketplace app as domain administrator, and it will make it very simple for teachers and students to access itslearning. So what you see is that teachers and students log on to itslearning using their Google account. For that to happen, they need to connect both accounts to each other. Something they've been able to do manually actually for many years under their connected accounts, where you can connect your Google account to your itslearning account. Once an account is connected, then the single sign-on can work. For those of you that are not a big fan of single sign-on or might have security reasons to not wanting to allow it, it is something an administrator can disable. But it will make the life of your teachers and students much easier. What we've recently released is a way to also automatically connect these accounts. By extending your SAS or MIS integration, you can now also populate the connected account with the school Google account or the G Suite account, if you will. And by doing that, you just make it easier for your teachers and students. It just works for them. They don't have to manually configure anything for this to work. So if you're interested, please reach out to your local subsidiary and they can help you further, or to your itslearning contact person. So one thing the connected accounts can be used for is accessing the single sign-on, but another application is basically accessing your Google Drive and accessing your Google documents. Bring those documents into itslearning as course resource, for example. So you might have a Google slide with a nice presentation that you want to bring in your course and show to your students. But those students themselves, for example, can use Google Docs to write an assignment answer and also pick that from that drive and submit to itslearning. And basically you want to make very, very simple when relevant, that you have the Google app available and close by. What does this mean? Well, it has been possible for many years already to add a file from Google Drive to itslearning, but we wanted to reduce the amount of clicks. So one thing we have developed now and is awaiting release is a much easier way to add a file from Google Drive to itslearning. And let me again play this video so you can see how this works. So I click the add button, I immediately see Google Drive, and here I can add from my Google Drive. If you're using a G Suite account, let me just click it slightly further, you will also see the shared drives. This is actually a very recent renaming. Previously these were the team drives from Google. So Google has renamed team drives to shared drives, and one of the deliverables of last year is also making it possible for teachers and students to select from shared drives, but also to select files that have been shared with you. So you can use the collaborative power of the G Suite, but then pick files you have worked on together and bring those into itslearning. So that could be a curriculum, working together with colleagues on the curriculum, bringing curriculum resources into itslearning, but maybe that's even a project group where students work together and bring their end results into itslearning. In this video I'm focusing on just adding a file from my Google Drive, so how to write a book report in this example. It's added to itslearning and I can see the end result. From here I can also drag it to another folder if I want to. So much clearer, much nearby is the access now to your Google Drive. A bit similar, but slightly extended. Again, it has been possible for a while to add files from Google Drive to the planner, but also here we've made it simpler. But here you will see a extension to this, which will come to the late summer, where we also will look at files you have recently worked on your Google Drive. So let me run this video again, and I click Add a Resource and Activity to my plan. I can add from Google Drive, and let me pause it right there, because what you see now is that I can still select the file, and then the pop-up window opens, and I can browse through my own drive or to my team drives or to the files shared with me. But I also see a list of the files you recently worked with in Google Drive. So this is a way to make it very simple to just pick a file that you just worked with and add it to itslearning. So in this case, the cover template story I'm adding, and there it is. So just a few clicks and you've added a file you've worked with on your Google Drive to itslearning. Another feature we've released, and this actually came in after the last summer holiday, is a feature very popular in Google Classroom. As I mentioned before, Google Classroom is not something we want to integrate with, given the overlap with itslearning courses. But if they have a powerful feature, we will certainly take that into consideration. And the real success story we learned when talking to institutions is the make a copy functionality, where you can pick a document from your Google Drive and indicate that each student answering the assignment should get a copy of that document. So this is not something new. It has been around almost the entire school year, but I do want to, or the entire year, but I do want to show it just to give a bit of a holistic overview of the work we've done in itslearning in regards to our G Suite integration. So let me hit play again. This video is slightly longer. I'm starting as a teacher, adding an assignment. In this case it will be a book report, a bit cliche maybe, but at least it's an example that everybody can imagine how that works. Picking a file from my Google Drive, which is a template document, so it's almost like a framework or a guideline that I can give to my students. Then I choose to make a copy for each student of this document, and I create the assignment. Now switching to the student view, they see a task on that task list, and when they click answer assignment, a copy of the document the teacher has selected is made on the fly. And on this copy the student has added permission, and the teacher also has added permission, so they can follow up and even potentially give in progress feedback on this document. So in itslearning I can now submit this document, and at this moment we reduce the permissions for the student to just view, so they can no longer change a document they have submitted. The teacher can edit it. In the all-in-one grader they can see a read-only version of this document, but they can click open in Google Drive, and then they have the full power of the Google Docs editor available. And one of the things they can do here, for example, is add comments directly on the document. So in this case I see a lot of the questions haven't been answered, so I'll give some comments on that. But also in itslearning it's possible to give some additional comments or some overall feedback. As I said, when submitted the student can only view the document, but if I set the assignment to incomplete here, the student is able to resubmit and gets added permissions on the document again. One of the things we're working with Google with is also to make it possible to edit the document directly in the all-in-one grader, but that requires some additional development also on Google's side. So something to come, but not entirely sure when. At this point it's still open, and it's still possible to open the document in a new tab and edit it there. In one of my intro slides I talked about easy access, making it very simple to access itslearning. We showed single sign-on, for example, but we also showed how easy it is to open your Google Drive or just pick one of the recent files you worked with and add those to itslearning. But one other aspect we're exploring, and we actually have started development on, is the idea that you don't necessarily have to be in itslearning to trigger a follow-up action in itslearning. So basically, wherever you are where relevant, you might want to trigger something or push something into its learning, or see some more information about it, something in its learning. Might sound a bit vague, but I've got some videos to clarify what I mean. First up is the Google Calendar integration. There is a calendar in its learning, but if you use G Suite and you already used Google Calendar, then it might make more sense for you to also have your its learning events and your its learning tasks in Google Calendar. And this way you have one overview, one glance of all your calendars, and maybe even your personal calendar if you use Google Calendar personally. So one-stop shop for all your to-dos. So in this Google Calendar integration, we'll do a couple of things. To the left here, you will see the courses. Each its learning course will have its own Google Calendar. And from each course, you will see the tasks. You can see those here at the top on that due date. And you can see any course events if you have those. Maybe you even have your timetable or schedule in its learning. That would also be synced to Google Calendar. Let me just hit play to show you what this integration does more. I mentioned that the assignments or anything else from your task list is on the top of the calendar on that due date, and I can simply jump to the relevant assignment or test or even a survey or whatever to follow up my action in its learning. Same goes for an event. If there is more information that cannot be shown in Google Calendar, then we also add a link for the teacher or the student to jump to its learning and see more information. So in this example, you see an excursion. There are some choices they can make in the registration tool, and they can do their follow-up action directly from here. So this integration syncs course events, syncs anything on the task list with the deadline to Google Calendar, but also allows teachers and students to easily jump to the details or to the assignment or the test in its learning. Something we're close to starting pilots on, and then hopefully after the summer we want to make this available for all customers that use the G Suite integration. The last slide in the current development section of this presentation is about our Chrome browser extension. Another example that you don't necessarily have to start in its learning to get things done. You might be somewhere else and decide you want to create something or push something into its learning. What we've done is developing a Chrome extension, which you can see here next to the address bar. And if you're a G Suite organization, you can actually push that Chrome extension to the users in your domain. So you can make sure that everybody that's logged in with a G Suite account from your organization can automatically get this Chrome extension in their Chrome browser. In this example, I'm in YouTube, and from YouTube I can push this resource into its learning. Let me just play the video again to show you how that works. Click the icon. First up, I can choose how I want to add this, in this case this video. I can choose to add it as a bulletin. Maybe I want to create an assignment where this is more the instruction of the assignment, or maybe I just want to add it as a resource. So first up, I choose how to add this web page to its learning. Next up, you choose the course you want to add it to, and in this case it's a bulletin, so I can choose to add an additional message to my students. When I add it to a course, I'm already done, but I can view it in its learning to see the end result. So now I'm jumping to its learning, and I can see the video is added as a bulletin with my additional text to this course. So other examples could be, for example, it could be a Google Doc. You've worked on a Google Doc and you're ready to push that Google Doc to its learning course as a resource. Or maybe you have the same Google Doc that you want your students to get a copy of so they can work on it as their assignment answer. So those are things we are looking at with our Chrome extension. This extension is expected late summer. So a lot of things already developed, already released, or currently in development, but there are other things we are looking at. First up is that migration from Google Classroom. If you have built up a lot of resources, a lot of assignments in Google Classroom, it would be a shame if you have to redo all that work. So we want to make it very simple to take that over into its learning. Next up is a Google Hangouts Meet integration. I'll talk a bit more about the potential usage of that in a bit. Same goes for the YouTube integration, what we want to achieve there. And lastly, the Google Forms integration. And in potential, if we hear from you or for other organizations that are other apps that we should integrate with and that add real value to students and teachers, then that's something that can also be taken into consideration. The Google Classroom migration can be a bit brief about this because I mentioned something on the previous slide as well, but we just want to make it very simple to continue where you left in Google Classroom. So you might have created assignments, you might have collected all kind of resources, all kind of documents, maybe organize them with topics in Classroom, and we want to make sure that information is not lost. You can just bring that in, migrate it into itslearning, and continue from there. With the Google Hangouts Meet integration, we want to make two scenarios possible. One of them is to actually plan online meetings, could be an online lecture or maybe an FAQ session or whatever. And the other one is to extend our instant messaging with a video chat. So when you're typing with somebody, you might come to the conclusion it might be more efficient if we just call each other and you can launch Hangouts Meet directly from your instant messaging. With our YouTube integration, also here it's a bit twofold what we want to achieve. One of them is just to make it very simple to add a video from YouTube, perhaps with a search, maybe in a rich text editor or just as a course resource. But we also see organizations that limit the permissions for their students on Google or on YouTube. So in their G Suite admin console, they can limit the access to YouTube videos. They can restrict it, as Google calls it. And with this integration, we also want to make it possible to automatically approve videos when a teacher adds those to an itslearning course. So again, a way to bring a tool that's used quite a lot and make it very simple for teachers and students to use it. Lastly, the Google Forms integration. Again, we know that there are many teachers that already have created surveys or even quizzes with Google Forms, and we want to make it possible to just easily use those in itslearning. So basically you can add from your Google Drive to itslearning, but we also, especially with quizzes, want to make it possible to get the grades into itslearning and show the grades or the score in the assessment record. So you can get a total overview of all the activities that feedback results into itslearning, or maybe the itslearning assignment tool, so you can have everything in one glance. And you can also benefit from our 360 reports this way. Again, making it very easy to continue where you left, and you don't have to redo things you've already done in Google. This was the last slide for me. Stephen, maybe you can take over, or maybe you can look a bit at questions that you haven't been able to answer.
No, we did have a question from David, which I've answered. He was asking about whether we move the videos from YouTube into itslearning, taking up valuable storage. We don't. We keep them on YouTube, but what Bart showed you was a sort of an integrated search, which really streamlines the whole process and makes it very easy to grab them and use them within itslearning. So thank you very much for your attendance today. Just to say that you can relive the videos. We'll put them all onto YouTube, and obviously you can share those with your colleagues, especially those that are using itslearning and Google, because it gives a good idea about what we have and what's coming. There's the other webinars as well. Please take a look at those if you haven't. So from Bart and myself, thank you very much for your attendance today. We hope you have a really good summer, and we're all looking forward to these great new features, the ones that were featured for back to school, for sort of back to when the colleges and universities start again, giving users better access to Google, better access to G Suite materials, and also streamlining the process to save tutors and lecturers that little bit of time, which of course is always so vital. So thanks very much for attendance today, and we'll have more webinars coming in the late summer and in the autumn, talking about some of the new features that we have. Thank you.